Chapter 2. Stop accepting the identity you were given. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not after you get one more certificate, one more compliment, one more sign from the universe. Now. Because the most dangerous thing you can do with your life is live inside a label you didn't choose. Most people are not living as themselves. They are living as a name someone gave them, a role someone assigned them, a limitation someone repeated until it felt like truth, and they have been obeying it ever since. They call it being realistic, but it's not realism. It's conditioning, it's inheritance, it's borrowed identity. And borrowed identity always comes with a silent price. You never fully become you. There is a version of you that exists beyond the noise, beyond the opinions, beyond the old story. But that version can't breathe inside the box other people built for you. So this chapter is a demolition. We're going to tear down the old signs on the door of your mind. We're going to expose the labels that quietly controlled you. We're going to break the psychological inheritance, and we're going to perform the first act of personal authority, deciding who you are becoming. Because what you accepted about yourself was never final. Let it sink in. What you accepted about yourself was never final. Not your personality, not your type, not your luck, not your limits, not your role in the family, not your place in the world. What you accepted about yourself was never final. Now, before we go deeper, I need you to understand something uncomfortable. You were trained. You were trained to see yourself a certain way, not because people were evil, not always. Sometimes it was love mixed with fear. Sometimes it was control disguised as protection. Sometimes it was a teacher who didn't see you. Sometimes it was a parent who was exhausted. Sometimes it was friends who needed you small so they could feel big. Sometimes it was society's quiet pressure. Be normal. Don't stand out. Don't embarrass us. And without realizing it, you swallowed the label like a pill. One day you're a child, full of raw possibility. The next day you're a young person learning which parts of you are allowed. You learn what gets you praised. You learn what gets you punished. You learn what gets you ignored. And slowly, a mask forms, a role forms, an identity forms. And then you grow up and think, this is me. But it's not you. It's what you accepted. And what you accepted about yourself was never final. Let's talk about labels, because labels are not just words. Labels are commands. Labels are tiny spells. They are short sentences that rewrite your future. Quiet, shy, not athletic, not smart, average, lazy, too sensitive, too emotional, not leadership material, not business-minded, not disciplined, not creative, not a people person. Every label is a suggestion. And if you accept the suggestion, it becomes a blueprint. Then the blueprint becomes behavior. Then behavior becomes your life. Here's what most people don't realize. Labels are sticky because they explain your pain. They give you a reason. They give you a story. They give you a place to hide. If you fail, the label protects you. Well, I'm not that type. If you don't try, the label excuses you. It's not my personality. If you shrink, the label justifies you. That's just who I am. But that protection is poison because it turns your potential into a museum, something you look at but never live. So I'm going to ask you a ruthless question. Which label have you been using as an excuse? Which identity have you been wearing as armor? Be honest, because your honesty is where power starts. Now, let's take a walk through the past, not to cry about it, but to understand the mechanism. A child is not born thinking, I am not enough. That idea is installed. A child is not born thinking, I can't do that. That idea is taught. A child is not born thinking, I should stay small. That idea is rewarded. Somewhere along the way, you were taught a survival strategy. Maybe you learned to be quiet, to avoid conflict. Maybe you learned to be funny, to be accepted. Maybe you learned to be perfect so nobody could criticize you. Maybe you learned to be agreeable so you wouldn't be abandoned. Maybe you learned to work hard so you would be valued. Maybe you learned to never ask for help because it felt unsafe. These are not personality traits. These are survival adaptations, and survival adaptations are not destiny. What you accepted about yourself was never final. Now, here's where the chapter turns into action, because you're not here to understand yourself like a textbook. You're here to transform. So we need to separate origin from authority. Your past may explain your current self-image, but it does not have authority over your future. Say it again. Your past may explain your current self-image, but it does not have authority over your future. Explanation is not permission. Understanding is not surrender. You can say, I see why I became this way, without saying, so I will stay this way. And this is the difference between people who evolve and people who repeat. The repeaters treat the past like a judge. The evolvers treat the past like a teacher. A judge says, you are guilty, you are stuck, you are doomed. A teacher says, here is the lesson, now go build. So now I want you to see the psychological inheritance. Because you didn't just inherit eye color and bone structure, you inherited beliefs, you inherited fear, you inherited patterns, you inherited limitations, you inherited the emotional climate of your family. If your family feared risk, you inherited caution. If your family struggled financially, you may have inherited scarcity. If your family avoided confrontation, you may have inherited silence. If your family fought constantly, you may have inherited hypervigilance. If your family lived for others' opinions, you may have inherited the need to prove yourself. This is not blame, this is awareness, because you cannot break a chain you pretend isn't there. Now, some people hear this and they want to rage at their parents, their teachers, their past. Stop. That's not power. That's still being controlled by the past. Power is not revenge. Power is choice. Power is construction. Power is building a new identity with your own hands. You don't need permission to outgrow your past. You don't need permission to change the family story. You don't need permission to become the first person in your bloodline who chooses a different path. And this is where you must understand the difference between inherited identity and chosen identity. Inherited identity is automatic. It is the default settings. It is what happens when you live unconsciously. Chosen identity is deliberate. It is designed. It is what happens when you wake up and say, enough. Chosen identity is not a feeling. It is a decision you honor with behavior. Now let's talk about the people you admire. Entrepreneurs, athletes, leaders, creators, builders. What do they all have in common? They rejected the identity they were given, not with anger, with discipline, with repetition, with proof. They were told they weren't enough, so they became undeniable. They were told it was impossible, so they made it inevitable. They were told people like you don't do that, so they became the exception that rewrites the rule. And before you say, but they're special, listen carefully. They became special by acting like the person they wanted to become before the world agreed. That's the secret. Identity is chosen first. Results come second. The world doesn't confirm you first. You confirm yourself first. Then the world adjusts. Let me give you a story. A young man grows up being called average. Not genius, not gifted, not leader, just average. He hears it so often he stops fighting it. He starts living like it's true. He avoids competition. He avoids attention. He avoids responsibility. He plays small to avoid disappointment. Years pass, and then one day he sees someone else, someone not more talented, living a bigger life. Not a better human, just a bigger identity. And something cracks. He realizes, I accepted a label. I never tested it. That's the moment of awakening, because labels are not truth. Labels are opinions that hardened into identity. What you accepted about yourself was never final. So the man makes a decision, not a wish, a decision. I will no longer live as average. And he begins the work. He starts doing what an above-average person does. He reads, he trains, he works, he builds skills, he stops wasting time, he stops entertaining weakness, not because he feels confident, but because he decided. And slowly the old identity begins to die. Not in one dramatic moment, in 1,000 quiet choices. In the morning when he gets up anyway. In the afternoon when he does the hard thing instead of the easy thing. In the evening when he keeps the promise instead of breaking it. And one day he looks in the mirror and realizes, I'm not trying anymore. I am. Identity changed because evidence changed. Now I want to give you the practical framework for breaking labels. This is not theory. This is behavior. Step one, name the label. You can't fight a ghost. You must bring it into the light. What label have you been living under? Shy, not disciplined, not a leader, not smart, not consistent, not lucky, too old, too late. Name it. Because once you name it, you stop being it. Step two, identify the cost. Every label has a price tag. What has this label cost you? Opportunities you didn't take, money you didn't earn, relationships you didn't protect, dreams you didn't pursue, respect you didn't demand, time you didn't get back. Feel the cost, not for guilt, for fuel. Step three, replace it with a chosen identity, not a vague fantasy, a clear identity, not I'm successful, that's too broad. Choose traits. I am disciplined. I am consistent. I am courageous. I am a finisher. I am a builder. I am calm under pressure. This is important. Your new identity must be behavioral, because identity is proven by what you do, not what you say. Step four, create proof through micro acts. Your brain does not believe your declarations, it believes your evidence. So you must create evidence, small, consistent, undeniable evidence. If your new identity is, I am disciplined, then you must do disciplined things daily. Wake up on time, train, work, study, finish small tasks, speak clearly, keep promises. Small proof beats big promises. Now here's the part most people miss. When you start building a new identity, the old identity will attack you. It will pull you back. It will tempt you. It will whisper, who are you trying to be? You're fake. You're doing too much. You're going to fail. That resistance is not a sign to stop. That resistance is a sign the old label is losing power. You have to treat the old identity like a dethroned king. It will scream when you remove its crown. Let it scream. Keep moving, because you're not here to protect the old story. You're here to build the new life. Now let's talk about the first act of personal authority, because everything changes when you do this one thing. You decide who you are becoming, not who you were, not who they said you are, not who your past suggests, who you are becoming. That decision is the beginning of power, because until you decide, your life is governed by defaults. Until you decide, other people's opinions run your choices. Until you decide, your mood runs your discipline. Until you decide, fear runs your destiny. But the moment you decide, something snaps into place. Your mind stops drifting. Your attention becomes a weapon. Your standards become clear. Your actions become aligned. Let me say it like this. Most people live like they are waiting to be chosen. Chosen by opportunity. Chosen by the right person. Chosen by luck. Chosen by timing. Chosen by the world. But powerful people choose themselves first. They say, I am the one. I am the builder. I am the decision. And then they act like it. You don't need permission to choose yourself. You don't need approval to start. You don't need validation to become disciplined. Now I'm going to give you a tough love instruction. If you want an unbreakable self-image, you must stop asking, is this who I am? And start asking, is this who I want to be? Because who I am can be a prison. Who I want to be is a direction. And direction is more powerful than emotion. Direction gives you a compass. Emotion changes hourly. Direction holds steady. So here's your assignment for this chapter. Do it seriously. Do it like your future depends on it, because it does. Assignment 1. Write your old label in your mind, the one that kept you small. Assignment 2. Write the new identity you choose. Not a goal, an identity, traits, behaviors. Assignment 3. Choose 3 daily non-negotiable actions that prove that identity. 3, not 10, 3, because consistency beats intensity. Example, if your identity is, I am disciplined, your 3 proofs could be, 1, wake up at a set time. 2, 30 minutes of focused work on your goal. 3, physical training or a long walk. Do them daily. No negotiation, no drama, no excuses. Because every day you complete those 3 actions, you are not just being productive, you are building your self-image. And your self-image runs your life. Now let's deal with a common trap. Some people say, but I don't feel like that person. Good. You're not supposed to feel like them yet. Feelings follow identity, and identity follows proof. You become the person by acting, not by waiting. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. If you wait until you feel confident, you will live as a spectator. If you act while you're still afraid, you build the builder identity. And once you build that identity, confidence becomes a byproduct. Now I want you to hear this like a command. Stop negotiating with the label. Stop debating with the past. Stop explaining your limitations. Stop protecting the old identity. What you accepted about yourself was never final. Let's close this chapter with a powerful truth that ties back to the whole book. Your self-image is not something you find. It is something you build. And the first step in building it is rejecting the identity you are given. Because if you keep living under old labels, you will keep producing old results. But the moment you choose a new identity and prove it with disciplined action, your life begins to shift. Not because the world changed, because you changed. Your self-image changed. Your standards changed. Your decisions changed. And your results never rise above your self-image. You have now ripped off the labels. You have now broken the inheritance. You have now committed the first act of personal authority. You have decided who you are becoming. Now we go to war with the most common enemy of a powerful self-image, Comparison. Because comparison is the thief of focus. Comparison is the assassin of confidence. Comparison is the drug that keeps you watching while others build. So now that you've stopped accepting the identity you were given, let's destroy the habit that keeps rebuilding it in the next chapter. Make sure to follow this channel for the third chapter. If it's already published, you can find it in the description of this audio. The title of the next chapter is Destroy the Habit of Comparison.